Hi, this is Les and Amy from the RevGenetics Podcast. You can listen to the podcast on YouTube and now on Spotify, where we do a deep dive on supplements and longevity studies. And today we're exploring this really fascinating study about a special gut-healing bacteria found in, well, traditional fermented pickles from a famous longevity village in China. We're going to see how its secret ingredients might not just, fix tummy troubles, but actually protect your brain.
Yeah, it's such an incredible look at how natural foods connect to really advanced biology. The origin story for this whole line of research is it's super fascinating. So the researchers traveled to this place called Bama. It's a multi-ethnic village in China, and it's basically world famous for the unusually long and, healthy lives of the people who live there.
Well, one of those longevity hotspots.
Exactly. It's one of those rare spots where a surprising number of people live well past 100 years old, and they do it with just incredible vitality.
Wait, so whenever I hear about places like that, my first thought is always, genetics. I mean, is there actual proof that it's their diet keeping them healthy, or did they just, win the genetic lottery?
Well, that's exactly what the scientists wanted to figure out, because genetics absolutely play a role, sure, but researchers have found over and over that when these people move away from the village and start eating modern, highly processed diets, they actually lose a lot of those health advantages.
Oh, wow. So the diet really is doing the heavy lifting there.
Yeah, it seems so. So the scientific team looked really closely at the local Bama diet to see what they were, putting into their bodies every single day. And they started testing the village's homemade traditional fermented pickles.
Pickles. Just like standard pickles.
Well, specific fermented ones. And inside them, they managed to isolate a very unique, incredibly tough strain of beneficial bacteria.
Okay, I know fermented foods have live microbes and stuff, but what makes this specific bug so tough? Can it just survive sitting in a jar on a shelf for years or something?
It's tough in the sense that it can survive the actual journey through the human body. I mean, our stomachs are filled with incredibly harsh, highly acidic fluid.
Right, it's basically an acid bath down there.
Exactly. That acid is basically designed to break down food and just destroy any invaders. So a massive percentage of the good bacteria we eat in, like standard foods or regular supplements, it just dies right there in the stomach acid before it can even do anything useful.
Oh, man. So you're taking probiotics and they're just getting fried.
Pretty much. But this specific microbe from the Bama pickles, it has a highly resilient outer structure. So it actually survives that acid bath and makes it all the way down into the intestines, perfectly intact.
Okay, so it gets to the intestines. Let's unpack what happens once it actually gets down there, because I think it really helps to visualize how the intestines work for everyone listening.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So think of your gut wall like a massive brick wall inside your body. The individual cells of your stomach and intestines, those are the bricks. And there is a very vital, mortar holding all those bricks together.
That's a great way to look at it.
Right. And that wall's entire job is to be a strict barrier. It's supposed to keep all the natural waste and toxins from digesting food safely inside the pipeline, so they can just pass right out of your body.
And under ideal conditions, that barrier works beautifully. But as we age, or when we eat highly processed foods, or even just when we face chronic stress, that cellular mortar starts to dissolve.
Oh, so that's what people call a leaky gut.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, exactly. People call it a leaky gut, and it is a very literal description. The mortar breaks down, microscopic cracks form between the bricks, and those harmful toxins just leak out of the intestines and spill directly into your bloodstream.
Which sounds like an absolute disaster. If I have toxins spilling into my bloodstream, my body is going to completely panic.
It absolutely panics. I mean, your immune system treats those leaked toxins like a massive infection. So it sets off these full-body alarms to fight off the invaders. And we experience those alarms as severe chronic inflammation.
Right, and inflammation is just terrible for you long term.
It is. Over time, that constant state of emergency just exhausts the body and sets the stage for a lot of long-term diseases. But here is where the researchers looking at the Bama pickles made a massive breakthrough.
Okay, what'd they find?
Well, they didn't just study the live bacteria itself. They ran tests comparing the live microbes to the tiny fat-soluble chemicals that the bacteria produce and, leave behind in the fluid around them.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, scientists call these leftovers postbiotics, but you can really just think of them as bacterial juice.
Wait, so you're telling me the tiny chemicals left behind in the fluid, the juice,
Yeah.
work better than the live microbe itself?
Yes.
That's like saying the honey is better medicine than swallowing the actual bee.
That is the perfect analogy, yes.
Oh.
And honestly, swallowing the bee is definitely risky, especially if it doesn't survive the trip through the stomach anyway.
Right, exactly.
So the study actually proved that this specific bacterial juice, the leftover honey, to use your comparison, it outperformed the live microbes in the lab. And the way it works is just fascinating.
How does it work? Does it just coat the stomach or something?
No, it doesn't just passively sit there. It contains specific messenger molecules. When the cells in your intestine absorb these tiny molecules, it acts like a cellular foreman handing out blueprints. It signals the cells to physically manufacture brand new proteins.
Wait, so it's literally generating fresh mortar to seal up the cracks in the wall?
Exactly.
That is completely wild.
Yeah,
It's literally sending instructions to the body to rebuild the barrier itself.
It is rebuilding the barrier, and at the exact same time, those molecules act like a chemical fire extinguisher. So it completely calms down the immune system's internal alarm bells. It just stops the inflammation right at the source.
Man, that's amazing. And, a huge shout out to RevGenetics for supporting us as we spotlight today's incredible natural science.
Yeah, absolutely. RevGenetics has a long-term focus on utilizing evidence-based natural compounds for aging research, which, naturally connects to the cellular repair and longevity themes we're exploring in today's study.
Totally. I mean, exploring how nature's smallest molecules can be harnessed to protect our long-term health is exactly what makes this research and RevGenetics mission so exciting for all of you listening.
For sure. So, going back to the study, we have patched the wall, right? And we've put out the fire in the gut. But the most incredible part of this study isn't actually what happened in the digestion system.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's what stopped happening in the brain once that wall was fixed.
Okay, wait, back up. How does a leaky intestine impact the brain? Because those systems feel completely disconnected from each other.
You'd think so, but it all comes back to the bloodstream. When that mortar in your gut breaks down, the toxins leak into the blood. But that blood doesn't just stay in your stomach, right?
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, your heart pumps it everywhere, and eventually that toxic, highly inflammatory blood flows straight up into your brain. Now, the brain has its own security barrier, but constant severe inflammation from the gut weakens the brain's defenses too.
Man, that is scary.
It is, and the study looks specifically at this mechanism using mice.
I am guessing mice with a leaky gut did not fare very well.
They fared terribly, yeah. When the mice had severe gut inflammation, their brains were actively suffering from the toxic leakage. I mean, they showed signs of severe brain damage and high levels of cognitive decline.
That's so sad.
It was bad. But when the scientists gave these sick mice the specific bacterial juice from the Bama pickles, the results were just astonishing. Because the juice sent the signals to fix the leaky gut, the toxic spill was contained.
So it cut off the poison supply right at the source.
It cut off the poison completely. And because the brain was no longer being bombarded by those toxins, the mice actually experienced a reversal in their brain damage.
Wait, really? A reversal, like it healed?
Yes. Their brain cells were suddenly protected and the brain inflammation just disappeared. But the behavioral changes were what really caught the researchers' attention.
How so? What happened?
Well, the mice that were given the juice had significantly better memory when navigating complex mazes. Furthermore, they were noticeably less anxious and showed far fewer signs of depression in their behavioral tests.
Wow. It is absolutely mind-blowing to think that, feeling highly anxious or struggling with a severe case of brain fog might sometimes just be a literal plumbing issue in the stomach.
Right.
Like, you feel terrible and think your brain is failing you, but you actually just have dissolving mortar in your intestines, letting waste seep into your blood.
Exactly. It completely reframes how we look at mental health, mood regulation, and even cognitive decline as we get older. We often treat the brain like it exists in a vacuum, but it's deeply connected to the integrity of our digestive plumbing.
That makes total sense when you lay it out like that.
And this brings up massive implications for the future of human medicine, too. I mean, right now, millions of people rely on live probiotics, but as we discussed earlier, those microbes are incredibly fragile.
Yeah, getting fried in the stomach acid.
Right. So in the future, instead of taking live bacteria that might just die in our stomach acid, we could utilize highly concentrated, totally stable postbiotics.
Ah, because the juice is just a stable chemical compound. It doesn't need to be kept alive like a bug does.
Precisely. We could use these incredibly stable messenger juices to treat severe bowel inflammation reliably without worrying about microbe survival rates at all. And remarkably, by sealing up the gut, we would be protecting our brains from long-term cognitive decline at the exact same time.
That is huge. So, what does this all mean for us right now? Like, can we just go find a jar of these specific village pickles and magically cure our anxiety and fix our digestive issues?
Well, it is important to stay grounded in where the science is currently at. Right now, scientists know that this healing juice is a complex mixture of beneficial chemicals.
Right, a mixture.
Yeah, and they've proven the mixture works miracles in the lab, but the next vital step is isolating the exact individual tiny molecules within that fluid that are doing the heavy lifting.
Oh, I get it. So they have to find the specific parts of the juice that actually work.
Exactly. Once they map out those specific molecules, they can standardize them and begin testing them in human clinical trials.
Man, but the optimism surrounding this is so real.
Hmm.
I mean, the idea that we are actively unlocking these targeted, natural cellular instructions from something as simple as a traditional fermented food is incredibly hopeful.
It really is.
It just really proves that some of the most advanced medicine might just be, ancient knowledge waiting to be understood under a microscope.
That is so true. And it leaves you with a rather profound thought to mull over, right? I mean, if a specific invisible chemical messenger from a simple fermented pickle in an isolated village can literally command human tissue to rebuild itself and, clear the fog from a mammalian brain.
Yeah, what else is out there?
Exactly. What happens when we start deeply analyzing the thousands of other traditional foods humanity has been eating for centuries? What other invisible chemical blueprints are we entirely ignoring in our modern processed diets simply because we haven't looked for the juice yet?
That is a wild thing to think about. We hope you enjoyed learning about today's study with us.
Thank you for listening to the RevGenetics Podcast.
RevGenetics.com for the best longevity supplements on Earth.